welcome everyone, and uh, the workshop is designed to discuss the policy issues related to the management and sustainable use of the non-native tree species in the alpine space. So briefly, we have 4 talks lined up, which deals with stakeholder perception, forest ecosystem services, multifunctional forest and the role of ASALP. And we will also have a talk on one of the most prominent NNTs species of Europe, the Douglas fir. And further from that, we will have a very interactive discussion session in a thematic group discussions with 2 groups. And with group leaders Alexander Marinchak and Nicola Laporta. And in the synthesis session, they will be presenting us with the summaries of the discussion, and we will end with our colleague Fred's ending comments. So I'll share my screen, starting from my presentation. Okay. All right. Can you see my?
Yes, we can see. I'm glad it works. Fantastic.
Okay, thank you. So as a part of the ALPTREES project, we conducted an online survey, online stakeholder survey from June to December 2020, and to understand the perceptions on risks and benefits for management of the NNTs in the European alpine space. So specifically, the objectives are to assess the awareness of origin and relevance of the NNTs, to examine the benefits and risk of NNTs on the ecosystem services, and understanding how the NNTs are managed in the alpine space. So the survey area is the ALPTREES project partner countries, also the alpine space, and except Switzerland, which is an integral part of the alpine space, even if it is not a part of the ALPTREES. So we conducted a structured questionnaire survey, and the respondents we had were 457. So how did we identify our stakeholders? So it was anyone who was under the umbrella of forests, like directly or indirectly associated with forestry, like timber businesses, landscape designers, students, researchers, seed nursery owners, policymakers, anybody who is associated with forestry were included and approached. Going into the profile of the respondents when it was analyzed, we found that most of majority of the respondents is from the forestry sector and followed by conservation and others. Like we see that the urban landscape designers or architects or gardens, private gardens, they came a bit late in the list of number of respondents. Going into the gender aspect of the total number of participants, which is very obvious and not surprising, the male respondents were double than the females, which is anyways a problem with the forestry sector for gender equity. Now, the perception on NNTs, the main question here is we found that most of the respondents found that it is risk, that the NNTs pose risk in their areas if the occurrence of NNTs pose risk, or it depends on whether the NNT is invasive or potentially invasive. So depends is a very safe word. So, but yes, I mean, we had majority of depends and having risk. Benefits is responded in a very less number. We also have must be eliminated in some numbers. So this perception might be, it is our assumption that this perception might be attributed to the confusion between, confusion in understanding the difference between non-native species and invasive alien species. So this understanding, there should be clarity in understanding of these definitions. Coming to the most commonly reported NNTs, we had made out a list of around 30 tree species, very common, occurring in Europe and the Alpine region. And of course, because our aim was to identify, was to understand how they identify, the awareness in identification of the NNTs. So we had sprinkled some native tree species also into the list. So, and now across the 6 countries, these are the 10 NNT species which are most commonly reported, like Rubinia, Douglas fir, tree of heaven, and so on and so forth. We see some differences in the country-wise perception, and which is and it shows that in all the other countries, as you see, Douglas fir is appearing in the first 5 in the list of first 5, but here in Italy we have Douglas fir in number 9, so which is a fact. So it shows that there is awareness in the identification of non-native tree species. But we also have to remember that majority of the respondents were from the forestry sector, so it is quite obvious. Coming into the questions of occurrence of NNTs, it is found that majority agrees that the NNT is a common occurrence in the urban and peri-urban areas, and there is a mixed response in case of NNT is a common occurrence in forest areas, and then it is a majority agrees that in the last 25 years there is increase of NNTs. So we can, since the respondents are the same group of respondents answering these 3 questions, we can assume that by this, they mean that the majority of the NNTs have increased in the 25 years, during the 25 years in the urban and peri-urban areas more than the forest. Since it was a survey in which we wanted to understand the awareness and about the management and of NNTs in the Alpine space, we had only posed one question about awareness of policies of NNTs to the respondents. And it is clear that most of them or majority of them have this understands the policies or have at least the basic awareness of policies of the NNTs. Now, getting into all this, how effective is stakeholder knowledge? So in this, because stakeholder participation is so important for policy design. So in 2014, Meyer et al. Had made a study where on the German forestry, as we know, the traditional German forestry has a very expert-based forest policies. But in the last 20 years, the regions like Baden-Württemberg has been a forerunner in involving civil societies and stakeholders for making forest policies. So in a way, involvement of stakeholders and in civil society organizations in decision making at the top, it is the foundation which actually goes into proper decision making at the top. So stakeholder involvement is very important in policy frameworks. Here are some very common legal frameworks and processes that the respondents have mentioned in the survey. So most of the mentionable ones are the Natura 2000, the IUCN Red List of Threatened Species, habitat directives, even in the SDG 15, the specific target, one of the specific targets is to reduce the impact of invasive alien species by 2020. So there are lots of it, so I'm not going through all of it, but yes, I mean, there are lots of policies and legal processes in place for risks of in plants. So as we know that the year of plant health was 2020, but due to the pandemic, it has been moved to 2021. So the EU also had focused on the introduction of some of tree restriction in the introduction of tree species will be says that specifically regulated due to phytosanitary reasons. So here overall we see that there are legal legislations or processes, but we still lack a concrete and comprehensive policies and frameworks under the climate change scenario, which is very much required. We still are lagging in it, but I'm sure with in the coming years we will see some concrete policies on the table on non-native tree species and its management and benefits of the non-native tree species in a way.